Welcome to the Network Plus Prepcast, your dedicated audio companion for mastering every objective on the CompTIA Network Plus certification exam. This series is produced by baremetalcyber.com. Web and directory service protocols enable the daily operation of enterprise systems, from browsing websites to authenticating users across the network. These protocols make it possible for users to connect to web applications, retrieve information from centralized databases, and log into various systems using a single identity. Web protocols such as HTTP and HTTPS focus on delivering content to users, while directory protocols like LDAP and LDAPS manage user credentials, group memberships, and policy enforcement. Both types of services are deeply intertwined with infrastructure operations and user experience. In the Network Plus certification exam, questions about web and directory services appear under the application protocol and port assignment objectives. These questions often test your ability to match protocols with their roles, identify secure versus insecure implementations, and recall standard port numbers. You may encounter network diagrams or configuration scenarios that require you to recognize whether encrypted communication is taking place or whether a specific service is reachable. The protocols in this category are fundamental to network access and user authentication and are therefore tested in multiple ways. Hypertext Transfer Protocol, or HTTP, is the foundational protocol used to deliver web content across networks. It operates over Transmission Control Protocol port 80 and transfers content such as text, images, and scripts from a web server to a browser. HTTP is stateless and designed for performance and simplicity, but it does not provide any built-in encryption or security. All data, including any credentials or session identifiers, is transmitted in plain text. For this reason, HTTP is considered unsafe for use with sensitive or personal information. To protect web communication, Hypertext Transfer Protocol Secure, or HTTPS, is used. HTTPS encrypts the HTTP session using Secure Sockets Layer or Transport Layer security, and operates on Transmission Control Protocol port 443. This encryption ensures that the data exchanged between the browser and the server cannot be intercepted or altered during transmission. HTTPS is now the standard for all websites that involve user authentication, financial transactions, or personal information, and most modern browsers display warnings when sites use unencrypted HTTP. The differences between HTTP and HTTPS are critical from both a security and exam perspective. HTTP transmits information openly and can be read by anyone with access to the data stream, making it inappropriate for logging forms, credit card transactions, or any confidential content. HTTPS, on the other hand, provides encryption, integrity, and server identity verification. Certificates used in HTTPS also enable users to confirm that they are communicating with the intended site, helping to defend against phishing and man-in-the-middle attacks. Lightweight Directory Access Protocol, or LDAP, is used to query and manage information stored in directory services. These directories hold structured data about users, devices, groups, and policies in a hierarchical format. LDAP is widely used in enterprise identity management systems and operates over Transmission Control Protocol port 389. Unlike HTTP, which delivers content to users, LDAP is used to support authentication, authorization, and access control across multiple systems and applications by referencing a central directory. LDAP directories are built using a hierarchical, object-based structure. This format organizes entries like users, computers, and organizational units into a tree-like model. Each object is defined by attributes such as username, group membership, or password expiration. This structure makes it possible to manage large volumes of identity data efficiently. In enterprise networks, directory services such as Active Directory rely on LDAP for everyday tasks, including user login, resource access, and group policy enforcement. To secure directory access, LDAPS is used. This is the encrypted version of the protocol and runs over Transmission Control Protocol port 636. It wraps LDAP messages in SSL or TLS encryption, protecting user credentials and query data from being intercepted. Just like HTTPS, LDAPS provides confidentiality and integrity, ensuring that authentication sessions and directory lookups cannot be monitored or modified by attackers. LDAPS is especially important in environments where directory services are exposed across network segments or accessed remotely. Directory services support a variety of critical use cases. They enable single sign-on, which allows users to authenticate once and access multiple systems. They also allow role-based access control, where permissions are assigned based on group membership or directory attributes. These systems reduce the complexity of account management and centralized control, which improves both security and efficiency. Without directory services, administrators would need to manage separate sets of credentials and access rules for every application or service. When considering the roles of web and directory protocols, it's important to understand how they complement each other. Web protocols, such as HTTP and HTTPS, are used to serve content and web-based applications to users. Directory protocols, such as LDAP and LDAPS, manage the identities and permissions that determine who can access those resources. Together, they form the backbone of secure and structured user access in enterprise environments, supporting everything from public web portals to internal application suites. Domain Name System, or DNS, plays a key supporting role in the operation of both web and directory services. When a user enters a web address or a client attempts to reach a directory server, DNS is used to resolve the human-readable name to an IP address. Without name resolution, neither web pages nor directory queries would be reachable. DNS records also support service discovery, enabling clients to locate the correct server for HTTP, HTTPS, LDAP, or LDAPS based on domain and subdomain mappings. For more cyber content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are other podcasts on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. Encryption plays a central role in securing both web and directory services. Without encryption, any data sent over the network, including passwords, form inputs, and directory lookups, can be intercepted by attackers with access to the communication path. HTTPS and LDAPS were developed specifically to solve this problem. HTTPS encrypts browser-to-server communications using secure sockets layer or transport layer security. LDAPS does the same for directory lookups and authentication queries. In modern environments, unencrypted versions of these protocols are often blocked by default, and encrypted alternatives are required by compliance standards and cybersecurity frameworks. Port numbers associated with each service are an essential part of configuring and troubleshooting communication. HTTP uses Transmission Control Protocol port 80, and HTTPS uses port 14.3. LDAP communicates over port 389, while LDAPS uses port 636. These port assignments are widely standardized and must be open on firewalls for services to be reachable. In practice, servers must be configured to listen on these ports, and clients must be allowed to connect to them through any intermediary network devices. A mismatch in port usage, such as attempting to reach LDAPS on port 309, will result in failed connections and authentication errors. When access issues arise, protocol-based troubleshooting can reveal the cause. Start by confirming whether the service is running and listening on the expected port. A web server not listening on port 80 or 443 will be unreachable, and a directory service restricted to port 389 will fail to process encrypted queries. Next, check for firewalls or access control lists that might be blocking the connection. Internal or external firewall rules may deny traffic to or from specific ports. Lastly, verify name resolution using tools like NSLOOKUP or DIG to ensure that domain names resolve to the correct IP addresses. Secure web access also requires digital certificates. For HTTPS to function, the server must have a valid certificate signed by a trusted certificate authority. This certificate contains the server's identity and a public key that allows clients to establish a secure connection. Browsers check that the certificate is valid, not expired, and correctly matches the server name. If any of these conditions are not met, the browser will display a warning or refuse to establish the connection. Proper certificate management is critical for ensuring that HTTPS sessions are not interrupted or spoofed. Directory integration is a core part of enterprise authentication systems. LDAP and LDAPS are used to authenticate users during login workflows, authorize access to shared resources, and support single sign-on implementations. They also enable role-based access control, where users are granted permissions based on group memberships or directory attributes. These services often integrate with platforms like Active Directory, which serve as centralized stores for user credentials and network policies. In large organizations, hundreds or thousands of systems may rely on a single directory service for authentication and identity management. Failing to use encrypted versions of these protocols has serious security consequences. When HTTP or LDAP is used instead of their encrypted counterparts, credentials and data are exposed to potential eavesdropping. Attackers on the same network can intercept usernames, passwords, and session identifiers. This kind of visibility allows for account takeovers, privilege escalation, and data theft. To prevent these threats, HTTPS and LDAPS should be used by default, and access to unencrypted versions should be explicitly disabled wherever possible. In enterprise environments, these protocols are found everywhere. HTTP and HTTPS are used in internal web-based management interfaces for routers, switches, firewalls, and application dashboards. LDAP and LDAPS are used behind the scenes for everything from desktop logins to email client authentication. Many applications are built to query a directory service at startup, to validate users, or to retrieve configuration settings. While some of these services run internally only, encryption is still important to protect against insider threats and compromised devices. The Network Plus exam includes questions that ask you to identify the correct port number for a given protocol, differentiate between secure and insecure versions, and select the best protocol for a specific use case. You may be shown a network diagram and asked to explain why a connection is failing, or be given a scenario where credentials are exposed and required to identify that LDAP is being used insecurely. Mastering the relationships between these protocols, their ports, and their role in secure communications is critical for both exam success and practical network design. To review the key points, HTTP and HTTPS are used for delivering web content. HTTP is unencrypted and uses port 80, while HTTPS is encrypted and uses port 443. LDAP and LDAPS are used for directory services. LDAP uses port 389 and is not encrypted by default, while LDAPS uses port 636 and encrypts all communication. Secure versions should be the default in all network designs, and access to legacy unencrypted ports should be limited or disabled. These protocols support identity, access control, and user experience across nearly every modern organization. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Network Plus Prepcast, your trusted audio guide to the CompTIA Network Plus certification. This episode was produced by baremetalcyber.com. For more cybersecurity podcasts, books, and resources, visit baremetalcyber.com. Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Bare Metal Cybersecurity Plus podcast. For more episodes, tools, and study support, visit us at baremetalcyber.com. And before you take the test, make sure to check out the practice questions in the book Achieve CompTIA Security Plus SY0-701 Exam Success by Dr. Jason Edwards. They cover every domain and are a powerful way to lock in your knowledge.